Deep Dive Film School makes no claim of ownership of the film footage used in this episode. The film footage is owned entirely by the copyright holders. Also, we're going to spoil the hell out of this movie, so this is your warning. Welcome to Deep Dive Film School!
This week, we're going to continue our International Horror Festival with 2017's Shin'ichirô Ueda's film, One Cut of the Dead. Oh boy, I cannot wait to get into this one.
Pull! All right, everybody, I am Adam Sherlock.
And I'm Adam Pulcher.
And if you like what you see /here, please like and subscribe. You can find us in all the spaces and places that people what?
Find good media.
That's right. We have 101s. We have that one scene that we do every other week. Punishment reviews, festivals, which we're in the middle of right now.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about why you wanted to choose. This one's your one of your choices.
Oh my God.
Why did you want to choose One Cut of the Dead?
Well, I just have never seen anything quite like it. There's some things it reminds me of, but I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like it. I think outside of the haunted house horror trope being one of my favorite horror type of movies, the comedy horror to me is the perfect peanut butter and jelly for movies. Yeah. Because it's the ridiculous making fun of the ridiculous, right?
For sure.
It just hits my funny bone so hard. And this movie's very funny. And it's just, when you think about what they had to do to make it and how much they actually made it for, and
it's what I can't stop thinking of.
It's a love letter to indie filmmakers, I think, is part of it. They made it for $25,000. They shot the whole thing in 8 days, which is what?
Yeah.
Using non-actors and a no-name director. And they made $25 million from the movie.
Yep.
Now there's special edition DVDs and shit of it, but like anything is possible. So like there's that part of it that I absolutely love.
Yeah.
Because I always love movies about making movies. And this definitely has a living in oblivion feel to it a little bit, but also it's got Birdman mixed in there a little bit. And I don't know, there's some weird, there's a lot of places I pull from this, and there's so many layers to what's going on. And it's so cleverly written, I think, is really the biggest thing. I truly, when this came out, this was in my top 3, I think, of the year.
Yeah.
And the more I thought about it, I was like, that is a genius fucking movie.
Well, because
everyone needs to see it.
The more you think about it, the larger the sort of nesting doll philosophy of it becomes.
Yeah.
And I will say, the first time that I saw this, you had recommended it to me. I'd seen it on a bunch of other top 5 lists for the year.
So you're saying I'm not original? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that you probably look online before you tell me to watch things. No, but what I was going to say is that, and people were like, just watch it. And so in watching it, this first 30 minutes is a single take. And the premise of this first 30 minutes is a film crew is making a zombie movie and in this abandoned water filtration plant. And then while the film crew is making the zombie movie, real zombies show up and infect them, right? And for me, as somebody who watches mostly horror films, and most people know that, during the first 30 minutes, it was fine, and I had a good time, but I was thinking to myself, a bunch of people who don't actually watch horror movies suggested something to me that they like and that I can just see is fucking cheap. Right?
Well,
and that's the joke. That's the glorious joke of this movie. Yes. Is that when you don't know what it is yet and you're just watching that, you're like...
You have so many questions.
You're like, why would anyone suggest this to me? And why are there all these really weird scenes of not just
non-acting.
Not just poor acting, but something's wrong. We don't know what yet, but there's whole sequences where I was like, what?
Something's off.
Something's off.
Yeah.
What we've sat on one person's face and it's like they all forgot their lines and you don't know what it is that's happening, but something really distinct is happening. And at the 30-minute mark, through this whole thing, we get these long cuts of these 3 people, this makeup woman, and then the main 2 leads, the boy and the girl, sort of sitting and having these very kind of just random kind of off the top of their head conversations that then get infiltrated by the people who are that were on crew that have now become zombies, chasing them around. And then we get these like, again, long moments of sort of nothing happening. And then it happens again. We get chasing around. The effects are pretty crummy. And then it finally ends with like this crane shot up to this pentagram that's supposedly what haunts, like where all the demons who possessed the zombies came from. And after this super, super long hang, we get the title of the movie, 30 minutes in, one cut of the dead, and then credits roll. And at that point, you're like, I don't know what I just watched. I don't know what any of this is supposed to be. And then the real movie starts. And do you want to kind of take us through the real movie?
That would be my number one advice for watching this movie is don't stop it at 36 minutes or whatever it is.
Do not.
Because it's not over. And I've recommended this movie to a lot of people, and I'm glad we're finally talking about it because not many people I know have seen it, but everyone I've talked to that has loves it.
Did I ever tell you about, minor tangent, but did I ever tell you about the time that I went in theater and watched Fight Club for the very first time when it came out? And about 28 minutes into the movie, the film got eaten. And for a minute, everybody thought it was part of the movie because Fincher's doing all these like jump cuts and crazy shit.
Yeah.
So people just sat in the darkened theater with a white screen going, is this part of the movie? And then the lights came up and they were like, sorry. And I went home and then I wasn't able to see it for another week and a half. But when I would talk to people were like, and it's not that I disliked it, but I was like, yeah, it's interesting. And people were like, yeah, you kind of didn't, you didn't make it to the part where you find out that he's Tyler Durden. Like, you didn't fucking make it to any of the actual parts of the movie that are important.
Yeah.
And I'd say shutting off One Cut of the Dead at 30 minutes, you miss everything that makes this movie actually good.
It's true. It's true. Absolutely. It's funny because I fell asleep in the middle of the game. And I woke up when he was in Mexico and had this shirt when I saw it in theaters, and I never fall asleep in movies. And same experience. I'm like, okay, I missed something.
Fincher, you got to do more in the middle of your movies, man.
Anyways, but you have to look at this movie in two different ways, right?
Okay.
The opening scene is actually the final scene where she gets eaten by her lover. If you actually see the scene they're doing, it's actually bookended by being the final scene of that movie as well.
Yeah.
And they're on take 42 through the beginning of this movie, and he's pleading and screaming, and the beauty of this is you don't know what you're watching, and you see this whole first part and you're like, yeah, that's like a below average low budget short zombie film, and it's pretty weird but kind of funny, and they have this whole legend of the place that they're in and on the rooftop and everything, and
the pentagram,
and they do all this you see that pentagram painted on the shed at one point. Seeing this movie, the last 2/3 of this movie is like more of like a traditional film, right? But we get to see the other side of how they made this and understanding why they made this, right? Because they have these executives saying, hey, we just did this zombie channel, we have this idea, and him getting explained to him of that it's okay, so it's a zombie film, live, one shot. That's it. He's like, really?
Yeah. And then you want me to have a story within that's sort of like is this background of them making a thing.
So you get this so completely reverse perspective and see how the progress and production goes, the behind the scenes of what's happening.
All of our characters. I mean, I think that, like, again, to your point, our opening shot of like, here is the boyfriend coming at the girlfriend. He's going to eat her. And then our director comes in, who's like this very Kubrickian, like,
yelling at
show
everyone.
Me the truth. Show me the truth.
Yeah,
da, 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 da.
That's a nod to The Shining for sure.
Yeah. And in the moment you just go, okay, they're doing this pastiche. But once it gets into the making of it, and you see what fucking prima donnas both of them are, and how cowed this director is. So I just love this guy.
He's great.
I love his character so much, and that, like, he used to believe in passion and truth, and he used to believe in these things, and now he'll make whatever commercial you want.
The director,
he'll
he's like, I do karaoke videos.
Yeah,
whatever.
I'll put the eye drops in to make the old guy cry in whatever commercial you want. Like, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
And he has an estranged daughter who, like, they
I
were
wouldn't say
obviously
she's estranged.
Well, I
but
think that maybe not fully estranged, but they don't talk.
They used to be connected and they're not anymore. And that's actually really one of my favorite underlying subplots is just kind of the father-daughter back and forth.
Well, and she's intense as fuck.
Well, she's just like him on the director's side.
She's like who he used to be before he kind of sold his soul to make the money that comes in, right?
She's like the guy that we saw in the
That's
film.
what I'm saying.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying is that we get this whole backstory. And I mean, dude, they give us everything that I just described literally in 2 scenes. Like, scene 1 is we meet the daughter, and she's basically gets kicked off of a set that she's working on because she's too intense.
Yeah.
And comes home. Then we meet the director, and we know
find
that
out
he's
our 2 main characters are also married, like to Mao and the director.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And you're like, wait, we know her, but she's like, I don't act anymore. And we're like, okay, hold on, what's going on?
Yes.
And I just love that is set up in this way where he is then basically waiting hand and foot on our 2 lead actors who are super prima donnas, don't want to learn their lines, are always tired and want to are complaining about the food and all this stuff.
Well, we get these different perspectives of the people that we've been watching the last 30 minutes, right?
Yeah.
The people, you see the sound guy and he's sitting there quiet and you don't know why. And like, and then you see the guy who comes back as a zombie who's all drunk.
Yeah.
And that guy. And then we start seeing these people in their real lives. And this guy's like, no, I emailed about my diarrhea.
Yeah.
Which is one of my favorite lines of the whole
Yeah,
movie.
I
He's
emailed
like,
about my diarrhea.
He's like, I sent an email.
Did you read my email?
I need soft water, not hard water. It
Yeah.
gives me diarrhea.
All of that stuff.
So all these questions that we have about what's going on and like, why was that scene? Why are we on the roof and we're seeing her scream for like 3 minutes straight? Like, what is happening?
Yeah.
And it keeps going in on her, and they say, "Just keep going, keep going."
We need a little bit more.
Stretch it out, stretch it out,
yeah.
and just so all these questions we have get answered.
Yeah.
And even when they're watching it live, all the executives, they're asking the questions that you had back in the
a little
first
long,
part of the
isn't it?
movie. There's like, why? What is this?
Yeah, what's this
and then
scene
you,
about?
Then you find out all these little things about each character, and like, yeah, he actually had to leave to shit.
Yeah.
And this guy is actually drunk, and they're basically like puppeting him
Yeah,
around.
they're pushing him up, and of course he's acting like a zombie because he's half passed out.
Perfect.
Like, all
when they
of
come
those-
up on the AD the first time is hilarious, and he's smoking a cigarette. He's like, "Whoa!" He's like, "Oh, they made you, a character or whatever."
I love this.
Anyway,
I don't know
sorry.
if you
Go.
ever saw. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Noises Off, or
Yes.
it was originally a play.
This was as well, right?
Yeah, and that's part of what this reminds me of is this same thing
Ghost
of
in
like
the Box was the name of the movie.
what's backstage and what's in front of stage, and
Yeah.
then seeing it different times. And it's that same thing where it's like you only have a piece of the story,
Mm-hmm.
and later on you get the other half of it. And not only does it make more sense, but it makes it 10 times funnier. And again, I think
Absolutely.
the director doing his Kubrick thing of like
Action!
Yelling for more drama and yelling for all these things, and you're like, yeah, he's technically playing the part, but he's also getting out of a lot of aggression.
Oh,
that
for
he's
sure.
been-
There's some real stuff he wanted to say there, but I
Yeah.
love that he keeps throwing zombies at them and saying action.
Oh, it's so good.
So
I
good.
love
Like,
it.
there's just so many little things like that, and anyways, it just go ahead.
Here's where because all of this works so well, and seeing the secondary version where all those pieces are tied together makes perfect sense. When my brain broke is when during the end credits we get behind the scenes
Of behind the scenes.
and I was like, oh right. The other thing we saw, because we saw, God, okay, the first 30 minutes is the actual thing that they filmed, but the people who were filming it were actors that were holding other, like, I don't know what they were. They were like HMCs or something, these camcorders. And they're the ones that are filming the first 30 minutes that we see as a single cut.
Yes.
Then the second half of the movie, after all of the sort of world building that happens in the second act, we get to the third act and we get what real, quote unquote, really happened.
Yes.
But that's a second film crew filming the first film crew. And then in the credits, we have the behind the scenes people that are filming. It's like that Bjork video, the Bachelorette, where we keep
Great
going
song.
one level further in, where it's like, oh, now we're in a play, watching the play that's watching a
There's
play
some
that's
Inception
watching.
in there. But what it is
melted my brain.
The actors are wearing. They kind of switch off on actors wearing some little camera on their heads or something. That's all it is.
Right.
So but yeah, you don't think about that or look at that because so much is going on.
And I'm
right?
like, is there ever a moment? Is there a sticker on the bottom of some of the cameras where they're like, prop camera 2, right? And you have like, we have real camera, prop camera 2, prop camera 3, which is the inception of prop camera 2.
There's so many layers here, and honestly, like, they made this movie for $25,000 in 8 days. Insane. And apparently they got it right the second time perfectly, but there was a crew error, and it took them up into the sixth time shooting that full long thing to get the final one that we ended up seeing. So there was 5 more before that, and one of them apparently was perfect. So, or close to it anyways.
I don't understand how this could have been a play before.
I think that's a good question. Yeah, I would love to see it.
I don't know if the first 30 minutes is like a movie that you watch, like they project it and then it turns into a play.
I would love to see it and see how they would do it.
Because I'm like,
it does seem, yeah, I mean, that's what it's based off of, though. I love, though, that it wouldn't be the same because you need this POV, right? Because in this first 36 minutes, and 15 minutes into this movie, the director points at us breaking the fourth wall. And now you realize the person we've had this POV the whole time is another cameraman in this short film. And so now that everyone has been ignoring and he hasn't said a word this whole movie or anything. So like the layers are just so thick here,
he's
right?
actually on top of it. Like he is actually, well, and it goes to, it's a really interesting, you talked about like loving movies that are about movies, but I also think that there's this concept of spectacle and what, like how quickly we as an audience slide into a particular narrative and then just make assumptions about the narrative after that.
That's half the fun of watching movies.
It completely is. But I think here to play with that in a way where it's like, I'm thinking of Cachet, the Haneke film.
Yeah.
Where, we go through this whole movie and there's this whole idea of like voyeurism and videotapes and all these things.
Yep.
And that's an in-movie thing that's happening. And when the movie ends, we see this final sequence that the credits roll through.
I totally thought about Haneke.
And then after the credits roll, the thing we're watching goes and
changes
and rewinds a little bit, and you go, we're watching one of the videotapes, right? Like, and we're complicit. We are now in it.
And it's too late.
And it's too late. And that this movie does that, but it pulls that rug out from underneath you like multiple times where like you're still watching a thing. And it's not a manipulative tactic. It's more of a joyous celebration of the idea of movie making. It isn't a Charlie Kaufman, like, it's all fake. Your whole life's fake. Your mom and dad are actors. And you're like, they're what? No. Like, it's not terrifying that way. It's much sweeter than that. But it does continually sort of pull that rug out from underneath you where you're like, oh, this is this movie that we're watching. But in a much sweeter way. I mean, the whole culmination back of like, they accidentally bump the crane off of the rooftop.
Yeah, you see all the stuff that didn't go right, and you see that the director of photography, and it's this man and this woman, and she's like, "Can I do it?" And he's grabbing his back, he's like, "This is all handheld, right?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "This is painful after 5 minutes." Like, and she, halfway through, they ended up dropping it, and the DOP changes, and everyone's like, "Yeah, that's awesome."
Well, and then when they're like, we can't do it. The director comes back and he's talking to the one producer who's on scene that are kind of in this control room, and his daughter's there.
Yeah.
And he's like, the crane broke, and he's like, but maybe we can do something else, and da-da-da-da-da. And the director's like, hey, slow your roll. That's not why we hired you. We hired you because you'll do average, right? And it's like he really calls him out.
Yeah.
And he again kowtows right back down to sort of that the guy who will put the fake tears in an actor's eyes. And it's great because at that moment, that's when his daughter's like, "Fuck that," right? And she again like reverts back to this like, "No way, like we can make this work." And again, for all of the pieces that are going on and all the funny set pieces and the jokes and then this acrobatic storytelling that's happening to still find a through line of heart is so cool.
I agree.
And it's the thing that makes the final sort of end of this movie like
that collaborative effort.
Oh my God.
Team, like I said, it's a love letter to indie filmmaking.
It pulls it off so well, and it's because of this heart. And she has this Polaroid of the two of them when she's a little girl. And it's all those elements. Like they work together so seamlessly where it never feels like it's forcing you to feel something. It all just feels joyous. Even in
the flashbacks where they're doing the scene where they're all reading for the first time together. It's such a great scene because like the director steps back and he kind of just sits and we're a fly on the wall with his name is Higurashi in the movie. That's the director's name. And he is, but he kind of sits back and he's just kind of watching all the side conversations and just everyone interacting. And as an audience, we get to do that as well. And it just adds to the layers of like who these people are a little bit. You just kind of see them in their real environment. It seems after we have all of these preconceptions of them being in the stupid zombie film. It's so weird, such a weird premise.
Well, and then like these little tidbits of like the male lead is in this boy band that the director's daughter loves, and he's fucking insufferable. And the director's like, fine, and then it's like he's constantly complaining about everything. And at some point, once the movie is started and is going, that's another fun subplot where it's like this version of the super intense director that our director has to now act as wins over the boy band dude. Like it takes a minute, but after a minute, he's
by
like,
the end of filming, he's convinced.
He's convinced.
This is the most artistic thing I've ever done.
This is the coolest thing I've ever been a part of. And you're just like, yes, like it's those victories that it's so funny that you said living in oblivion, because I think that same thing of like all these different personalities and then like, can we actually even pull this thing off?
Yep.
And then it does, and you're there in real time
and you see the
watching
awkward pauses, and now they make sense, and they're just procrastinating. Even when she goes in the shed and hides, and you see a zombie walk up, but it's actually giving her directions of
Go
what
get
to
the
do.
axe.
Go get the axe outside. She's like, "Oh, lucky me."
I completely forgot about that until the second time watching it.
That's
and I was
the fun part of this movie. Just a very rewatchable, fun movie, and like, the layout and how they tell the story is really genius. I really hope people don't turn it off at 36 minutes and think that's the whole movie, because part of it being a crappy short film is the charm of this movie, right?
It's the scrappiness of it.
And then we see the other side of it, in which you're not expecting. You don't know what this movie is about. You're watching this weird horror movie that doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, and doesn't totally work, and yeah.
And then you see that like, oh, the puke is real when that guy gets puked in his face.
Totally.
That AD crying and just like, just like and you see them being a puppet for the drunk guy,
taking the shirt off and putting the fake arm on
and how
him.
Mal now gets so lost in acting, and she becomes like this other killer person after she kills the first zombie.
And I love that happens, and she gets like obsessed with it, and that then we cut back to our control room thing, and the daughter's like, yeah, she stopped acting because she got way too intense. And she's like, or somebody made her stop acting. Maybe she got fired. I don't exactly remember, but you're like, oh my God, she's literally going to try and kill the teeny bopper
and we
pop
follow
star
him,
guy.
And so the script keeps changing and evolving, and they're just trying to get through this thing.
Yeah, all in real time.
And they kind of do in the best, sweetest way. Like you're saying, like it's just, I don't know. I guess that's the beauty of art to me, is that it can be anything, right? It can be too long, too short. It's about the final perception, right?
Well, and this idea also of like, that, our director took the job because he needed the money, and then he reverted back to who he used to be, which is like, I want to make something that there's no way you could actually make. I want to be the guy that makes it.
it was hard to tell if he was intrigued by that or was scared by that or both. I don't know.
I think it's a process. I think through the process is when he became that, you know, and you know,
again, so many layers. Damn it.
And another good movie that it reminded me of in that way, and it's worth noting because one of the not actors, one of the characters, a real person in it, just recently passed. But I was thinking about American Movie.
Oh yeah, that's right. Mike passed.
Mike just recently passed. A young guy too. He was not that old. I think he was in his early 50s. But again, another movie about the love of making movies, regardless of how good the quality of the movie they're making is. Definitely. It doesn't really matter. Yeah, Coven. You'll be fine. Jesus told me so, right? But here's the thing about it is it doesn't, again, that movie stokes this love of the act of making movies, even though the movie that they're actually making is of really low quality. The passion to do the thing, and the same trials and tribulations you deal with, and like having an actor who thinks they're just the shit, and you're like, ugh, you're like everybody else here. Like all those touch points resonate no matter what that actually is.
Like, honestly, this has just as many layers as something like Adaptation or, Primer. Well, maybe not Primer. Well, Primer's got a lot, but like, you know what I mean? Like, if it's just one of those movies that is so overly, I don't want to say overly artistic, but overly clever that you just like a Memento or something, like you have to think about like, wait, what am I watching exactly? Yeah. When you have to question what you're exactly watching and they pull off what they pulled off here, amazing. Last thing I'll say, this movie's a lot funnier because the zombies are dumb and slow. If they were fast running zombies, it would not be a funny movie, right?
Yeah, no, this is all about Caro syrup blood and like the white contact lenses.
Yeah, it's this like Day of the Dead stuff.
This is like thriller zombies. Yeah. Right? And like and that's what makes it so again, very endearing in this way of like
they're not hard to get away from, right?
Well, and it's not this like gruesome, fast-paced journey. It's like the girl screams, she runs down the hallway, she runs up the stairs, she stops, she turns around, she screams again, she runs down a different hallway. And like owning into that beat by beat is what makes it so funny once you see the behind the scenes where they're all like, okay, ready? And now run up. Okay, stop. She screams. Okay, now everybody run down this hallway. And like seeing it from that side, you're like, God, that is so hilarious.
It is. And I'm just glad a movie like this exists. Yeah. It's just one of those, I don't know. I love when you can step out and really like look at the process and also be able to laugh and have this whole genre going on around what you're trying to do as well, and pulling into all the tropes of those particular genres and
then multiplying your gross by like 100,000%.
Yep, pretty good.
Good job, you guys.
Pretty good.
It really is.
Yeah.
Fantastic movie.
So glad you loved it. I knew you would. Again, please watch past 36 minutes.
Yeah, it's worth it.
Oh, you know what? They remade this already. Can you believe that?
Oh, come on, really?
It's called Final Cut, and it's a French version of it. And apparently it's a shot-by-shot remake, which I'm like, what? No way. How are you going to do a shot-by-shot remake?
They didn't even know what they were doing. There's no way you're going to do a shot-for-shot.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Why remake a movie? Especially, you know how much that drives me crazy.
Just leave it alone,
Anyways,
man.
That is our review of One Cut of the Dead. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe. Yes. We do these every week. Next week, we are going to continue with that one scene. I don't think we picked anything yet, but we'll do that after this. Yeah. And please like and subscribe. We need to hit that 1,000 subscribers. We'd love to have you join us on this ride.
Yep. Thanks a lot, you guys.
Thanks, everyone.